Good day, everyone. I am Lancipate Kilnet, a third year College of Nurse Shatton campus, taking a Bachelor of Secondary Education major in Social Studies. Today, we're going to talk about the evolutionary leadership theory. But first, let's unlock what is evolution and what is a leader. So, evolution is the process by which species of organisms developed and changed over time, driven by natural selection and other mechanisms. While leader or a leadership, it refers to the ability to guide, inspire, and influence others towards achieving a common goal or vision. A leader can be an individual or a group of individuals who provide direction, support, and motivation to a team or organization. Leadership is an important aspect of personal and professional growth, and it is essential for creating and sustaining successful organizations. So, what is evolutionary leadership theory? So, evolutionary leadership theory analyzes leaderships from an evolutionary perspective. Evolutionary psychology assumes that our thinking, feeling, and doing are the product of an innate psychological mechanisms. Teachers as leaders. In schools, there are always selfless teachers who support students at all costs. Trusted by students and staffs alike, these teachers are known to make decisions based on students' needs. Their dedication to improve students' academics and social experiences is proven by their willingness to dedicate lunches and school and after school hours with students to grow their activities and programs. So we have the leadership eras. We have four leadership eras. So leadership eras, it refers to different periods of time in which leadership theories and practices were shaped by the prevailing social, economic, and political conditions. First is under the leadership era, we have the personality era. So the personality era included the first formal leadership theories and presented a beginning in the understanding of the leadership process. This era is divided into the Great Mind period and the Trade period. So first is the Great Man period. The Great Man period theory states that some people are born with the necessity attributes that set them apart from others, that these traits are responsible for their assuming positions of power and authority. A leader is a hero who accomplishes goals against all odds of his followers. The Great Man period also refers to a historical perspective that attributes the course of history and major societal changes to the actions of a great man or exceptional individuals. This idea suggests that history is shaped by the influence of powerful and charismatic individuals who possess extraordinary leadership skills and personal qualities. The concept of the Great Man period was popularized during 19th century, particularly by historian Thomas Thomas Carlyle. According to his perspective, key historical events and social changes were the result of the actions and decisions of influential leaders such as military commanders, political figures, and inventors. Next is the Trade period. The Trade era assumed that leaders are born. They have special characteristics and traits, and that leaders and followers have different traits. In the context of leadership, the trait period refers to a period in the history of leadership research that focused on identifying the personality traits and characteristics of effective leaders. During this period, researchers sought to identify the stable, enduring traits that distinguished successful leaders from unsuccessful ones. Early leadership theories during the trait period proposed that certain personality traits such as intelligence, self-confidence, assertive, and integrity were associated with effective leadership. The most well-known model of leadership traits during this period was developed by Ralph Stockdale, who identified several traits that were constantly associated with effective leadership, such as initiative, persistence, and emotional stability. The next step is the influence era. So, influence era improved on the personality era by recognizing that leadership is a relation between individuals and not a characteristic of a solitary leader. It addressed aspects of power and influence and compromises the power relations period. So, the influence era refers to a period in the history of leadership research that shifted the focus from the personality traits of individual leaders to the interpersonal process and behaviors that leaders use to influence others. During this period, researchers sought to understand how leaders exerted their influence and how followers responded to their leadership. The influence era emerged in the 1950s and 1960s as a response to the limitations of the trait period, which had focused on identifying the innate characteristics of effective leaders. Researchers during the influence era recognized that leadership effective leadership was more complex and situational, and that successful leaders needed to adapt their behaviors to fit the needs of their followers and the demands of their environment. So we have the power relation period under the influence era. So the power relation period was a leadership era that emphasized the importance of understanding the role of power and leadership and influence in leadership. The power relation period refers to a period in the history of leadership research that shifted the focus from an individual traits and behaviors of leaders to the social and cultural factors that shape leadership and followership. During this period, researchers sought to understand how power and social influence are distributed within organizations and how they impact leadership dynamics. So this period emerged in 1970s and 1980s as a response to the limitation of earlier leadership theories, which had focused primarily on individual characteristics of leaders and their behaviors. So next is the behavior era. The behavior era took a completely new direction by emphasizing what leaders do as opposed to their traits or source of power. The behavioral era refers to a period in the history of leadership research that shifted the focus from the innate characteristics of individual leaders to the observable behaviors and that effective leaders exhibit. During this period, researchers sought to identify the specific leadership behavior and styles that were associated with effective leadership. This era emerged in the mid 20th century as the response of the limitation of earlier leadership theories such as the period which had focused primarily on identifying the personality traits of effective leaders. So under the behavior era, we have the early behavior period. So this period was basically an extension of the trait period, except that instead of studying personality traits, the emphasis was on developing behavior traits. The early behavior period refers to a period in the history of leadership research that focuses on identifying the observable behaviors of effective leaders. So this period is considered a subset of the um, broader behavior era, which emphasized the importance of observable leadership behaviors in understanding leadership effectiveness. So this period emerged in the 1940s and 1950s as a response to the limitation of earlier leadership theories such as the trait period, which had focused primarily on identifying the personality traits effective leader. So under that is the and we have here the late behavior period. So this is the advance. This period is the advance of the early behavior period by adapting them from the managerial application. So this period refers to a period in the history of leadership research that focuses on identifying the specific behaviors and styles of effective leaders in different situational contexts. So this period is considered a continuation of the behavioral era, which emphasized the importance of observable behaviors and in understanding leadership effectiveness. So this period emerged in the 1960s and 1970s as a response to the limitation of earlier leadership theories. Next is the operant behavior period. So this period focused on the leader as the manager of reinforcement with the appropriate behavior of the leader and follower. So this period refers to the history of leadership research that focus on the use of and punishment to shape the behavior of followers. So this period is considered a subset of the broader behavioral era, which emphasized the importance of observable behaviors in understanding leadership effectiveness. So this period emerged in the 1950s and 1960s. Next is we have the situation era. So this era of leadership refers to those leaders who adopt different leadership styles according to the situation and the development level of their team members. So this refers to the period of the importance of situational factors in understanding leadership effectiveness. So this era emerged in the 1960s and 1970s as a response to the limitations of earlier leadership theories. So this focused on primarily on innate characteristics of leaders. So we have next is we have the environment period. So these leaders were taught to arise only by being in the right place at the right time under the right circumstances, and their actions were inconsequential. So composed of many unique variables that influence a leader's decisions, such as objectives, conditions, resources available, organizational influences, and others affected by actions. So next is the social status period. So this period was a study of leadership that emphasizes the importance of social status and power dynamics within organizations and recognize the importance of social identity and diversity. So the next one is we have seven competencies of evolutionary leadership theory. First is the personal evolution. So this competency supports leaders in developing a complexity of consciousness and a new worldview through becoming a different kind of observer of the world. Next is the emotions and generative language. So, evolutionary leaders use the power of emotions and language to bring forth new realities. This competency invites leaders to master their emotions in a way that sets the foundations for healthy relationships, for caring, for seeing the other as a legitimate other, and for setting the context for generative dialogue. Next is the systems thinking. We need to be aware of the fact that we exist with a multiplicity of systems, natural systems, living systems, social systems, and technological systems, and to name a few. So, this competency enables leaders to see systems, design new ones, and influence those systems toward systematic sustainability. Next is the systemic sustainability. So most people think of sustainability exclusively as an environmental issue. Systematic sustainability defines sustainability as a macro complex system made up of three important subsystems. So that three subsystems bring forth an emergent complex new system. Sustainability as coherent property that supports the well-being of all three systems. The fifth one is the ontological designing. It is a discipline of consciously designing our life worlds, our institutions, our products, our processes, and ourselves so that they contribute toward the future of sustainment of life in this planet. We have the adaptive work collaboration, so we have involved of disciplinary between values and circumstances. Next is the evolutionary vision, scenarios, and wisdoms. So leaders, in understanding our evolutionary history as these living systems and as a human beings, it also invites us to develop wisdom in order to make the right choices for our future.